Nick, you look thicker than you were last year. What kind of weight gain have you had? What did you do over the off season, and how much are you weighing right now?
Right now, I'm sitting about 310, which is obviously a lot heavier than I played at last year. I think the biggest thing this offseason was more nutrition. I think Alexa's kind of been the biggest, help for me, helping with nutrition. Like, she teaches how to cook things, and that was huge for me. I think even like this past offseason, I dropped my body fat percent by 7%, which has been huge for me as well.
What's your go-to recipe then? What have you learned how to cook?
Oh man, I've got lots of stuff: coconut shrimp, boom boom shrimp, a lot of shrimp recipes, certain like Asian chicken recipes, all types of good stuff.
It's going to be hard to follow up on that question, but anyway, 4 or 5 starters back on that offensive line now, and the offseason transfer of Orlando in here to the center spot allows everybody to kind of stay in the places they're most fitted for. Um, where do you guys think you can be this season as a collective unit? What is the goal? And how do you handle the expectations of everybody's expecting you guys to be one of the better offensive lines in the SEC?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think there's a lot of high expectations for us just with all the experience. I mean, even Nano, this is his first year, but I mean, obviously, he's played a lot of football at Utah. He's very experienced, and he just kind of gets it. He's only been here a couple weeks, but like in my opinion, he seems like a seasoned vet with just the way he makes his calls and everything. So I think really the sky's the limit for us. Up front, I think that's something we've kind of talked about. We want to be on the talk for that Joe Moore Award. I think just me personally, I think that's something that's really high on our list of things to do.
Heading into your third year, do you have a different perspective than you did last year? Obviously, last year was the first year you were a full-time starter, and now that you're kind of one of the veterans in the group, what kind of standard are you holding yourself to with that?
I think the standard's a lot higher for me. Just kind of having, playing before, just being more of a leader in the room. If I can't do it, how can I expect guys like Cedric Nicely, Cedric Melton Tobias, all those guys to really pick up their play as well. So I think that's been kind of one of the main things is, taking every little detail, as far as I can go with it.
Obviously, kind of a quick transition in offensive line coaches. I'm curious how that transition has been. Is it a transition for you guys? I know you have a ton of experience up there. How much of a difference does that make for you guys?
Schematically, none, not really. I mean, there's certain things, some terminology that's a little bit different, but schematically, I mean, it's still Leb's offense, still Kivin's offense, so none of that really changes. I think a lot of it is, just kind of the way we practice now, some of the footwork things, call it certain ways. But I think Coach Thorne's been awesome. I mean, he's an absolute stud. I mean, he was a great hire for us, and I think, we've really bought into everything he's done, and I think our O-line looks a lot different right now with him.
Nick, I asked Coach Levy about this, but when you look at that offensive line, there appears to be really good depth on the interior of the offensive line. But when you look at you and you look at Jeremy James, you wonder where the depth is going to come, from on the edge. So I guess what I'm asking is, what have you seen? Who's impressed you of those guys behind you two at the tackle spots?
I think Hamilton Hall has really played well. Tobias, those guys have been the two main tackles reps guys. Cedric Melton's played some tackle, and I think Cedric Nicely's done a really good job too. I think he's going to be a really good player.
You see Matt Corral as much as anybody. A lot of talk about him nationally this offseason, obviously. Have you seen any difference from him from last year to this year? Have you seen any growth, or is he kind of the same Matt?
No, he's light years better, which is crazy to think about. As good as he was last year, I think, a lot of it forms mentally too. He's a lot mentally sharper too. I mean, now he really understands the protections really well, which has been huge for him. To kind of go with all the coverages and everything. So I think I expect a huge year from Matt, and I think just having that huge year, that means obviously we're going to play a good year as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask next. Obviously, if he's light years better and the offense was as good as it was last year, do you think there is a ceiling for this offense? What are your expectations for what this offense can
I
do?
think the big thing for us is we said all the time, we don't want to come off the field without 6 points. No matter what the circumstances, we want to get touchdown and get off the field with that.
Just talking about Matt, he was in here a couple days ago, and we just talked with Coach Levy about him. I'm curious, people have talked about him becoming a better leader. In terms of his leadership style, is he a rah guy? Is he a laid back guy? Is he funny? Like, how would you describe Matt Corral well, just kind of as a personality?
I think the biggest thing Matt does is he leads by example. You know, everything he does, or excuse me, everything he says, he really does. You know, if he tells us to work harder, stay in extra, I mean, Matt's the same way. I mean, Matt's 24/7 in this building, which is kind of, you know, led on to some of us. You know, now I don't leave this building because I know Matt's in here. You know, I want to protect Matt. You know, that's the biggest thing is if we have a quarterback like that, you know, the last thing I want to do is let him get touched.